Hey yo, what's good everyone? Twisted here with Open Sorcery, and today I am joined by my lovely co-host Devi, as is, often the case. And today we are going to be talking about black magic and white magic. And for those who have heard the terms before, there's a good chance that there comes a certain sort of stigma with each of those terms, or just with the colors of black and white in of themselves, which likely has a relation to the stigma of black magic and white magic itself, maybe going ahead and setting the stage for the overall stigmatization of black and white as general colors. But we're trying to go ahead here and depolarize it a little bit to give a little bit of a spoiler, or foreshadow like how we're going to approach this. So yes, Devi, I know that this in of itself is something that you often like talking about and all of that, as well as I, in trying to explain to people. So, for the first sort of thing with the history of magic and how the term black magic came to be, what have you, I'll go ahead and start off with reading an excerpt from definitely one of our favorite books of Angels and Archangels by Damien Eccles. And then I'll have you go ahead and like elaborate and just give more so personal view of how the term is been phrased or what have you.
Sounds good.
All right. So this comes from the near the beginning of chapter 6 in Angels and Archangels by Damien Eccles, where throughout the book, aside from the main sort of chapters that he has a little bit of additional notes and information that are pretty good to kind of like break it up a bit. And right here is the section of History of Magic, the Black Lands. So here it goes. The core of a magical practice is a process of internal alchemy that traces its roots back to the ancient Middle East, beginning in Mesopotamia and eventually finding its way into Egypt, the region around the Nile that was once known as Kemet. One explanation of this name, often translated as the Black Land, is that it described how rich and fertile the soil was. In time, the spiritual practices of that culture were referred to as the Black Arts. The term black magic wouldn't take on diabolical connotations until much later, when the Catholic Church would spend centuries attempting to stamp out any form of spirituality they considered to be a rival, including misrepresenting the symbols of other forms of worship as malevolent in some way. So, with having heard that, or just anything else related to the term black magic, the floor is yours.
All right. So we got to go to the Middle Ages, right? The Middle Ages. And everybody was delving into magic, especially priests. And I know that one's kind of like that's a shocker, right? The church practicing magic, that's horrible. So the way that I have understood it is they vilified anything outside of church practices as black magic because that's dirty, that's a sin, that's the devil, literally, that's the devil. But anything
That's
that
the
was,
devil child.
I know, but anything inside of the church was white magic. This was good, this was from God, this is acceptable. And especially like with the alchemy movement and everything like that, like midwives and people that were of the land, they were practicing folk magic and things like that. That was considered black magic because it was outside of the sanction of the church overall. So while I understand where Damien got his information on like the black soil and everything, and it was fertility, it was good, it was meant to like be the place where you plant the seed of whatever you're looking to manifest or make real in this reality, right? Um, it has been bastardized through the centuries. It really has, and now it's come to be like, I don't know. Think back to the craft, like
Are you talking
typical.
about the film that you love so
Oh
much?
yes, I am absolutely
Okay, yes,
talking
from
about the movie.
1996.
Oh
Yes.
yes, fantastic movie, but that is not in any way, shape, or form like black magic. Magic is magic. Your intention is what forms it, really.
Oh, yes. As opposed to a particular set or means of practices that, and all of that,
Hmm.
Yes, yes. Or like the polarization of like light or dark, and all of that sort of thing. There is good darkness, there is bad darkness, there is good light, there is bad light. And of course, as time goes on, we'll definitely be covering a few more particular expressions of those sorts of things, what have you, of how it's been polarized or, trying to depolarize it. Because I know that for both you and I, we're more so, I guess, categorized as middle path or just like not being on one side of the fence or the other in terms of the whole black and white distinction, appropriately so. Go ahead and speaking about that in this particular video. Um,
I will
but yes,
continuously and constantly be considered gray on everything.
yes. Shall I start calling you Gandalf?
Yes, 100%. Let me grow out a beard. I don't know how long that's gonna take. I might need to take some testosterone for that shit.
Go for
Absolutely.
it.
I'll get a bigger beard than you do.
uh, well, you know what? Listen, the way it's looking, and all that sort of thing, you might have a better chance than me. But yeah, yeah, I'm definitely want some spots filled in. But all in all, like so yeah, it's something you mentioned that I definitely want to go ahead and cover, which isn't on the main topic. It's a bit of a detour, somewhat, but I did want to go ahead and speak about is that yes, there is that polarization in terms of the West, with the Catholic Church being more so the reigning authority during the Middle Ages and all that sort of thing, but also in the East, there is definitely quite a few records of people practicing magic in terms of them being common folk, lay folk, what have you. And this is a particular book that you and I have gone ahead and checked out at the same time or near around the same time. Let me just go ahead and find it real quick. Buddhist Magic, Divination, Healing, and Enchantment Through the Ages by Sam Van Schaik. And, along with Angels and Archangels, we'll go ahead and provide links down below to check out the books for yourself if you wish to. But all in all, as we had gone ahead and read beforehand, the book covers many various different sorts of practices of individuals, and those were definitely more so of the low magic variety, and you could say sorcery and all of that sort of thing. Just more so, hey, look, I have material and practical needs or wants or concerns, and we'll go ahead and accomplish it. And in that sort of thing, like the author in himself did not necessarily, he went ahead and gave, a little bit of like, hey, this may not necessarily be the best thing in terms of particular usages, but was more so academic and neutral, and honestly did not believe that said practices were actually real and or effective themselves, because they're more so of a materialist scientific sort of person. But yes, all in all, people have been using magical means, spiritual practices, all that sort of thing throughout history. And the thing about it is that the polarization, the stigma of it, comes from governing authoritative bodies of individuals and people, as opposed to say, oh yes, there's purely a like divine mandate and manner of existence where you're going to hell and you die, sort of thing, from doing a particular action, or at least for the most part. Sometimes there's a little bit more so of a direct one-to-one connotation, but a lot of it is very much, hey, look, if you're not going ahead and doing it with our okay, then you're once again you're seen as evil, you're seen as bastardized, what have you.
Yes, and actually, I do want to touch on. I know you had said low magic, and you and I recently had a discussion with Light for his own channel on chakras. So, in that,
Well, okay, that is in development.
it
We
is
do
in
not necessarily
development,
know if that
but
will come to
hold
fruition.
up, hold up, hold up. But what I want to pull up is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All right. So,
Yes.
lay people. they are going to be at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction, like things that are at the bottom, right? The reason why they're
Yes.
at the bottom is you cannot ascend to the next level until that's taken care of. So think of it as completing a level, right? In a video game, you go level 1, but you're missing something and you can't get to level 2. You got to do full completion of that before you can get to level 2, and then level 3, and then level 4, and so on and so forth. But I don't necessarily like the term low magic. I understand it and I don't talk about it very often. I don't like that term because if you are not able to fulfill the needs of your surroundings at that moment, how are you supposed to be rooted enough to actually reach for the heavens, to reach for the higher aspects of self in that sense? Because a tree without steady roots cannot grow to the heights that it can achieve.
Oh yes. Well, I think what that sort of thing comes from is that you can achieve those material aims and, like, going ahead and providing for those basic needs in material manners. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need necessarily the intangible to go ahead and fulfill those material needs. I think that's where the stigma comes from, is a sense of, like, from not necessarily you or I, but just, people who are going ahead and more so of doing high magic or having a proper balance, that, hey, look, if you're purely and solely in this for material aims and needs, or that's the majority of the shit that you're doing, then that's not what you should be aiming for. You should be,
Mm-hmm.
once again, aiming for higher things, or aiming for a balance between the two, you
Yeah.
know, and flowing through of the traffic of energy, towards both sort of aims. I think that all in all is where that sort of thing comes from. But truth be told, regardless of whatever sort of, I guess you can say, high magic elitism and all that you're speaking against, which certain it's only a small group of people, a very small minority of people actually go ahead and hold and share, it is definitely something that most people don't give a damn about. Like,
Oh yeah.
truth be told, the thing about it is that most people actually, like, those, I would say, those criticisms, while I don't think that one should solely be doing high magical things, or what have you, as opposed to solely low magic, and that you have to have one or the other. I think that should be a balance. But there definitely is credence to the fact that most people, they don't have the best intentions in mind, or they do not have the, trying to figure out how to put it, they aren't in it for the sake of actual personal development and going ahead and connecting oneself to the divine, in the sense of evolving and breaking the wheel of samsara, or
Yeah.
evolving past it, or expanding your awareness, or going ahead and all those sorts of things. They're in it for, what can I do to serve me as a person living this human existence now, today,
Yeah.
and all that. As is the case with just about anything, really, and it's about a person's mentality and approach, not necessarily just towards magic, but just towards life in general.
Yeah.
And most people, when they delve into magical, spiritual, occult, you know, metaphysics, whatever, when they delve into these sorts of things, or anything really, they're just in, like, how can I go ahead and translate it into dollaroos? How can I go ahead and translate it into getting me some sexual gratification, or just general sort of instant gratification?
Yeah.
All of that.
And in that, I will put the caveat, right? Because I don't see a problem with quote low magic. But I do see an issue with overuse of it. Think of it this way. If you are stuck like in a corner, you're almost helpless. I say almost, right? And you cannot get this need felt or this need filled, um in terms of, like, you're already working your ass off. You are spending all of your time, all of your energy, like you don't have anything else that you can give on the physical. This is where that supplement of the spiritual can be like, hey, let us work on this side while you're working on that side, because you're already putting forth the effort. You're already doing everything that you need to do. It's just not coming to fruition in the way that it needs to. So it's getting the other side to kind of work on that mirror image to assist you in getting towards that goal. Because the way that I see the world, and this is personal to me, is, that as above so below, right? But I almost see it like a mirror
Yes.
image of any time that I am doing something on this side, there is something mirrored that is going on the other side. And so if you can get those working in conjunction, then you can get to that balance and that harmony that you're talking about. Especially like in the quote middle path, right? But with that, if you already have that need met, you already have that need taken care of, like you got plenty of food, you got plenty of water, you technically got a lot of money, or you are just spending it, extraneously, then the spirits are going to look at you and go, we're going to fuck this one up, because they're asking for something that they do not need. When you are
Oh, I think I will
going for
interject
that.
real quick. I will interject about the whole fucking up thing. I think that depends on particular spirit entity, what have you, in their approach. It's not, it depends. Like, though, like, I think that some will be like, we'll fuck you up and all of that based on the individual's approach who is asking for it, as well as, like, how they mesh and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. But I don't think it's necessarily, once again, as black and white as saying, oh, yes, someone's asking for money, but they don't need it, we'll fuck them up. No. At other times, they'll either just be like, oh, well, sure, you can make the request, but it doesn't mean we're going to fulfill it, or completely ignore them and
Mm-hmm.
all that sort of thing.
I've
Yes.
just, the way that I have interacted with them, they kind of take that as a slight of, dude, you already have everything that you need. What are you talking about? And then they start actually highlighting what you have, and then they will take it away. That is from my own experience. And it's just like, okay, you're going to be greedy. We're going to make you actually feel need.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it definitely happens. But like I said, I think it's more so of a person to spirit, and, like, I think that qualifies as person to person as well,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever sort of distinction that intangible side of things wants to go ahead and categorize themselves as what have you. But I think it comes down more to like, all right, the different situation will call for different approaches and all that. But
Yeah.
does that happen for sure, where they will go ahead and fuck you up? Oh yeah, most definitely. Depends on the
Yeah.
approach. Like, if some dude is pretty much like, all right, I want to go ahead and I already have, like, a 6-figure income, and I want to go ahead and, like, do something for more of that. Depending on the person, depending on, I guess, karma, you can say. Depending on, I don't know, if you want to say something of a generational nature, or how humble they are about it, how genuine they are about it, right? You know, you could go ahead and say that will work for them. It's not as if there's a sort of like hard cap of like, oh, you must be under this sort of economic level before, where we will go ahead and give you assistance, magically speaking, you know what I mean? But all in all, it comes down to how someone's approaching this. If some
Yes.
dude's just like being a dick and like, hey, look, I want some more money, give me money, then you may go ahead and see, oh, we gonna fuck you up, or just abject, like, ignoring. But if there is like, all right, this person right here, he's checking all his boxes, crossing his T's, dotting his I's, all that sort of thing, and like, this is going to help him do more things of a mutually beneficial nature. Sure, it could help him out, but it could help a lot of other people out, and all of that. Whichever entities or spirits are looking for altruistic sort of results, right?
Yes.
Then you can go ahead and have success. Of course, there's some other ones who are like, hey, we'll give you what the fuck you want, and not care, in terms of whether you use it for altruistic means. And that's also something to highlight, is that there are entities, in terms of low magical aims and things, they will give them to you more so readily than others, and not be concerned with any of those sort of things we just talked about. But at the same time, they'll be like, all right, what can I gain out of this? Where can
Exactly.
I go ahead? Yes, where can I go ahead and come in and, fuck you up and be like, hey, look, you're looking to get a leg up and all that sort of thing. Well, I'm looking to get a leg up on you and or anything pertaining to your surrounding situation. And I guess more so less about actual just talking about money is the primary example, but less in a monetary sort of sense, but more so of energetically to go
Hmm.
ahead and use the etymology you know, currency in terms of money, right, comes from current sea, all of that water and flow sort of terminology, what have you, and that being more so what they are concerned with in dealing with, what have you.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
yes, while this does go ahead into polarization of things, and with the categorization of low magic and high magic, I definitely think that we should go ahead and get back a little more so on track. And when it comes to low magic and high magic, that will address it specifically once again in its own particular video and topic, what have you. But truth be told, I think we covered black magic quite a bit for the most part of like just getting the general notion across, at least for both of our perspectives,
Hmm.
of that it is, you know, it is seen as negative. Black is considered evil and darkness and all these sorts of things. But all in all, the roots come from more so the location and that it is neutral in of itself, right? And you can say that, Egyptian magic or anything related to like magic itself is evil based on your own perspective, and that's for you to judge yourself. But just know that the actual etymology, terminology, the origins of it are neutral and what have you. But in terms of white magic, I believe that the origins of that, and I'm going to go ahead and credit Foolish Fish on YouTube, which I will go ahead and link their channel if you're not familiar with them already. It's a pretty big YouTube channel, but they went ahead and just as we're going ahead and discussing now, they had a video about categorizing magic, black magic, white magic, low magic, high magic, all of that. And in that video, they went ahead and discussed pretty much like, oh yes, things are neutral, and the origin of black magic is not necessarily evil, what have you, but that white magic itself, as you were speaking about before, Devi, comes from once things were labeled as black magic, and by the different sort of Catholic Christian institutions, at least in the Western sense, right? And going ahead and having different sorts of witch hunts, literally, and you could say especially during the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition, so on and so forth, right, that there would be a distinction made of like, oh, what I'm doing here is not black magic, what I'm doing here is white magic, and that will go ahead and serve as something that passes, right?
Hmm.
And in particular monks, right, and particular Christian Catholic monks going ahead and making that distinction of like, oh, we're doing these practices, but it's white magic, it's not necessarily bad, it's in service to the Lord and all of that sort of thing, so they get away with it and exempt themselves, or just anybody who was, I guess, privy enough or smart enough to go ahead and have some good throw some good PR their own way, in that sort of sense. And all in all, like that sort of like the connotation of the colors themselves. Black is seen as dark, dirty, vile, all of that. The white is seen as more so pure, cleansed, and all of that. And chicken or the egg, really, if we go ahead and talk about it and discuss it, right? What came first, the color associations or black and white magic? And honestly, I don't particularly know, but I do know that it exists unto this day, hence why we're speaking about it, and more so giving clarification that both these terms, at least from the perspective of Devi and I think that we're more so comprehending the true nature of it and all of that, that it is more so neutral and both can be applied in a positive or a negative manner, a detrimental or a beneficial manner, and all of that. What say you?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it this way: there is no day without night. And night is not necessarily, time of evil or like, oh my God, things are just so bad here. It's a time of rest. It's a time of reflection. It is a time of, it's not necessarily activity. It kind of brings me back to like the masculine and the feminine, right? Whereas the masculine is like pushing its way forward and the feminine is receptive, right?
Oh
So
yes,
active and
yes,
receptive. So
yes.
there is no good or bad with it. It just is.
Oh yes, yes. And all in all, I will take a moment to say that in terms of masculine and feminine, we have spoken about it before on the channel. If y'all have not seen it, and it exists, so go through the catalog and you'll find us talking about the masculine and feminine for a bit more of a expanded sort of approach to it, as opposed to this small utterance of it. But yes, all in all, right? There are ways that you can utilize, like the darkness for positive, or the light for negative, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
some examples that I think deserve their own moment in the sun, and talking about it specifically is, you could say, like spiritual bypassing, or how people who, granted, a lot of it is like we personally associate to like new age movements like love and light, bro, and all that sort of thing. But it can
Yes.
expand to any sort of shade or area of the spiritual realm or regular life, what have you, if you want to just talk about in the psychological realm of therapy, right? And taking on that approach and what have you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the sort of, we're gonna shove everything under the rug, and it builds up and it accumulates, and we're not necessarily recognizing or being aware of or giving credence to these things exist. They are right here. They need to be addressed. They need to be integrated. There needs to be a reintegration of these things, and not necessarily a sort of like, trying to think of a particular word. A
Separation,
well,
removal.
yes, yeah. Well, yes. I'm trying to think. Think of like some sort of I know this is going ahead and adding a bit of a more extra runtime, what have you, but yes, rejection. Yes, let us not reject those sorts of aspects of ourselves. More so, reintegrate it. Whether it is through the individuation process. Once again, speaking about psychological route of, say, Carl Jung or other psychologists and therapists, what have you, of taking these darker elements and being like, how are they going to be of service to me and to others when needed? Are you supposed to be a complete pacifist and go ahead and let people trample on you continually? You can be a nice person continually, but is that necessarily going to get you far? And not necessarily for the sake of being selfish and going ahead and everything's about me. No, it's about finding that balance within yourself and going ahead and being like, you know what? If someone does someone I care about wrong, or does me wrong, or I need to get a point across, then being a little more aggressive and direct is necessary. You can still be respectful and you can be civil and all of that, and that's at least my own recommended approach most of the time. But
I mean,
you
sometimes you gotta
can use
smack a
that
hoe.
aggression.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes you have
Sometimes
to smack a
sometimes it
hoe.
calls for that. There's a thing such as self defense. You know what I mean? And
Castle
physically,
law.
verbally, what have you. But like, yeah. So yeah, all in all, right? Like, you have to realize that not everything is black and white. To go ahead and keep with the main theme, that you can use darker things for positive aims, or I should say beneficial aims, because negative in of itself is, if we're just thinking about the atom, right? If we're thinking about the structure of atom, right? Negative charge, that's an electron. Positive sort of charge as a proton. And of course, there's a neutron, right?
Hmm.
But all these things, they're not necessarily good or bad or evil or what have you. They all serve their own sort of function. And they're going to keep serving those sorts of functions as the building blocks of the material reality that we live in and all of that. They don't care about morals. They're just doing what they do. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And all of that. And if anything, you can say that as a net positive that they're doing so. So we can have this sort of experience. Or for those who are more so of a Gnostic perspective and think, oh no, the material realm was made by the demiurge, what have you. And material realm bad, that it's actually more so of an evil thing. Um, it's all about your perspective at the end of the day, what have you. And also, like you can go ahead and, I'm just speaking about just the sort of reversals of like the usual polarizations that are given to black magic or white magic, right?
Hmm.
But, of course, we have to recognize that, yes, there are negative ways that you can use, darkness, and there are positive ways that you can utilize, the light, what have you. Um, you know, and there's many examples of that, but all in all, just be able to recognize that all that glitters isn't necessarily gold when it comes to white magic or the light or things that are shiny or luminescent, what have you, and that not everything is bad or bleak when it comes to darkness. But I've been riffing for a moment, so what has come to mind while I've been going ahead and taking up a lot of airspace?
No, so it's more of, it just brings me back to the left hand path and the right hand path, right? So left
Yes.
hand path is more self-serving, that there are ways to do that in a positive and a negative sense. And it is going to be your aim on that that is going to determine whether it is good or bad, but it has nothing to do with it being the left hand path whatsoever. um the the right hand is, you know, servant in heaven, serving other people. That's great, good, cool, serving the greater purpose and whatnot.
As opposed to being king in hell with the left hand path and that sort
Yes,
of
king in
phrasing. Yes.
hell, servant in heaven. But in terms of that, think about it this way, where, and I'll use churches as an example, right? These Catholic churches, these Baptist churches, they're making money hand over fist, right? They are getting tithes to them so much. If we look at the evangelical, right? You send your money to God. And these men are buying yachts and fucking planes for what? Just to have it?
Yes.
So you're doing something for a righteous purpose, but it is serving that king in hell aspect. So it just, there is negativity in the light, there is negativity in the dark, there is positivity in the light, there is positivity in the dark. Because
Yin yang wheel.
absolutely, think about it this way: in a lot of cities or states, it is against the law to feed the homeless.
Yes.
Do what? It is against the law to feed homeless people, to feed people that are in need, to assist them. And that is supposed to be the law. The law is supposed to be righteous and good, right? That is kind of what we're taught. But it is in exact detriment to people. So just because it is touted as, oh, this is good and righteous and everything, does not make it white magic, does not make it good, does not make it positive. It's more of learning actual discernment versus just doing what you're told.
Oh, yes. In that sort of vein of talking about homeless people and you going ahead and, like, giving them some money or giving them some food to eat or whatever the case may be, like, there's a difference between someone who's in need, right? And you go ahead and give them like $5, right? And all of that. There's a difference between someone who's actually going to utilize that for food and make sure that they have something in their stomach because they just have not had the opportunity to, like, they can't get a job or they don't have a home, right? Using what you spoke about before of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they have those sort of base needs met. They're not easily accessible to them, and there's a difference between that and someone who's like, all right, we're going ahead and giving them $5. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to get themselves a bottle of booze, or they're going ahead and get themselves some smack, or whatever sort of drug or sort of negative thing that in many cases, if they're going spending on that, that's what got them to that situation in the first place.
Mhm.
So, all in all, once again, that discernment of like, which homeless person should I be going ahead and supporting? Which homeless person should I be like, no, I'm not going to give you my money. You're not
Well,
going to
not
help
just that.
yourself with it. And yeah,
Not just that. Um, I don't. I expect that this is everywhere, but I know down here in Texas, there is a lot of them that will just set up at the side of Walmart. They have children out there that are on iPads. They have, you know, you can see them with technology. They will be literal scammers that are saying, "Oh, hey, help us, we're homeless." But they don't need help. They're making money hand over fist. They probably make money than well, they make more money than a lot of people that are giving them money. And that is another aspect of discernment. But at the same time, that goes on them, that doesn't go on you. Um, because you reached your hand out to help somebody who was supposedly in need. And just because they are profiting off of it does not mean that the scales will not balance eventually.
oh no, no, no! I was not trying to go ahead and. I don't think either of us were trying to insinuate that whatsoever. But you bring that up. Yeah, it's not just something that happens quite a bit in Texas. It happens in California. It happens across the United States. It happens in Canada. Like I believe that in particular, like Vancouver, there was some sort of news articles, like throughout the past however many years, stating about being someone who's homeless in that city. Like you can rake in a lot of change, and that's actually more so of commonplace practice. Where you're going ahead and you're getting a near living amount of money, a near living wage from going ahead and panhandling and getting people to give you money on the streets, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Darn Canadians, too nice for their own good, apparently, or at least that's how the stereotype goes.
I mean, the stereotype goes like that, but the funny part is they are considered some of the worst war criminals in the entire world.
Hey,
So
listen,
it's
I don't know about that.
hilarious. It's
Listen,
hilarious. Oh
I
my
honestly
god.
don't know about that from a historical perspective, and that would be more so on the government than the people. Granted, I know how much authoritarian measures are being put in place and have been put in place in recent history over in Canada, but I'm just talking about the main everyday folks
Oh yeah, no,
themselves.
absolutely. It's just the way that I see it, it's funny because it's showing Canada. You think like these sweet people, they are so nice, so kind, but their armies and that which represents them commits some of the most heinous things in the world. So it's like
Oh yeah,
you seeing that huge swing in opposition to what is presented, which
oh
I
yeah,
think kind of fits perfectly with the talk about white magic and black magic.
yes, yes. And of course, not just with the Canadians, but we can expand that just about to
Oh, absolutely.
every sort of military out there, of a first world, second world nation, and third world nations. You're going ahead and you're doing negative actions for seemingly, or at least portrayed as positive intentions, positive aims. That the ends shall justify the means. Whether or not such is the case, that's for all of us to individually decide. What have you? But all in all, you know going ahead and going to war, or being more so forceful conflicts and all that sort of thing, just in more so like extreme cases and all that. Granted, having a military there is not all necessarily a bad thing, what have you. If you're like peace and love, dude, we gotta stop the war, man. Like, not gonna lie, self-defense, as I was stating before, or being more so of peacemakers or mediators, whether it's the military or whether it's police officers or whatever the case may be. Like, they have to go ahead and be more so of the authoritative figures in order for us as people, because a lot of people and a lot of situations we can be irrational, or we can go ahead and have bad aims. They more so step in like, hey, they serve as a buffer.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, not everything is black and white. Just go ahead and put it simply and try to bring it back to the core point,
Yes.
what have you. Yes. But in terms of black magic and white magic and all of that sort of thing, you went ahead and gave a little bit of insight, went on a couple different detours or, tangents and all of that. I believe we have gone ahead and covered the points, and gotten it across and what have you. But yeah, so any additional thoughts that before we wrap this up?
No, I am an airhead at this point. There's nothing in here.
Oh, so you've gone ahead and well, isn't that more so of like there was air in there, what have you, and then like you've gone ahead and like you've taken the balloon, you've like squeezed all the air out. Wouldn't that be more so appropriate?
So my brain is farting.
I guess so. If you want to think about like that sort of thing is like a
Gotcha.
whoopee cushion. That sort of balloon is a whoopee cushion.
Yes, I have a whoopee cushion brain. Absolutely. It's deflated.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh we will run with that. All right. But yes, so this has been Twisted and
Devi.
with Over and Sorcery. And, until next time, stay frosty, Neguses. Peace.
Have a great night.